Although almost every entry in the Super Mario Bros. Series plays basically the same, being that they're platformers set within either the 2D or 3D realms, there are times when they contain a few features that set them apart from the other, making them somewhat unique, even if that reason can be a bit underwhelming. This exact topic led me to want to create today's video, where I'm going to go over the most gimmicky levels throughout every single title in the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, showcasing exactly why they might attract your attention, and are used just to get you interested in the games. Oh yeah, and before we get started here, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, hitting that bell to stay notified when I upload new videos. Of course, the very first game to be released in the series is Super Mario Bros. That came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985, where I think basically everyone would agree that the most gimmicky levels from it are the underwater-based ones, where there are only two in this title. This is World 2-2 and 7-2, where both are absolutely flooded with Cheeps and Bloopers, who are super annoying to swim around, as Mario moves incredibly awkwardly in this environment. Honestly, I just feel like these types of stages just didn't work well at the time on a system like the NES, as it just wasn't up to the standards of what they probably envisioned. Although, they wouldn't give up, as these water-based levels have become a staple of the series. The next game to be released in Western markets on the NES is Super Mario Bros. 2, where without a doubt the most gimmicky levels are the sand digging ones, found in the pyramids throughout the desert worlds. This mechanic is unique to the second entry, where your character can actually pluck certain objects underneath them, usually resulting in the collection of a power-up, or the picking up of an object that you can then throw. However, in these circumstances, what you pluck is actually the sand, which allows you to dig and progress downwards, which, I'm gonna say, is not fun at all and is just annoying. This is mainly due to the sniffet enemies that either run into you or shoot projectiles at you, and at times they're almost impossible to avoid, so you'll likely take tons of damage. Now, I get that this is just a holdover from Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic, as that game was reskinned for North American markets, as the Japanese sequel was just deemed too hard and too different, but unfortunately whenever you come across this task, it just feels cumbersome and not fun. The final of the original trilogy is Super Mario Bros. 3, that was released in North America in 1990, where I'd have to say that the levels that fit the category of this video are the Giant Land ones, all found within World 4. Here you'll see that the enemies, objects, and platforms have all become gigantified, meaning that it can be a bit tougher to platform around them, although they function basically the exact same, just with a few minor changes. This is fun for a few stages, then gets boring very quick, and I'd have to say that this is the literal definition of gimmicky, as they really just implemented these features for the wow factor. Up next is that true Japanese sequel we just talked about, called Super Mario Bros. 2, obviously. Released eventually years later in North America under the title of The Lost Levels, where without a doubt, the stages that come across as gimmicky are the ones where you need to pick the right path to make it to the Bowser boss fights. This mechanic can be found in World 3-4, World 6-4, and World 8-4, where you essentially need to memorize the correct path, or risk losing a life due to running out of time. Something that sorta sucks, as without a guide, this just becomes a guessing game. Also, it takes no skill and sorta cheapens the gameplay, where I get that Nintendo tried to take a slightly different approach to making things difficult, but unfortunately it just fell flat. The first handheld title in the series is Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, where I guess the levels in it that could be considered as gimmicky are the vehicle-based ones, even though they truly are amazing experiences that work well within this rudimentary environment. Now, I guess these two stages, the submarine-based one of 2-3 and the plane-based one of 4-3, are an example of when something sort of divergent can be a good thing. What's insane to me is that to this day, Mario has never found himself in a similar scenario of driving a vehicle and fighting enemies in his mainline series ever again. Something I do hope they can eventually implement, as I think it could lead to some awesome gameplay, especially in the 3D environment. Next to be released is Super Mario World for the SNES, where I could only really think of one level that's gimmicky in any way, in Vanilla Secret 3. Mainly due to you needing to platform on dolphins who jump in and out of the water. Even though on paper this idea seems interesting, it sort of just falls flat in my opinion, as it isn't difficult enough to be memorable or fun, where really the only risk is the singular Porcupuffer foe that chases you around in the water. I get that I'm being a bit nitpicky, as in the end it's a secret, out-of-the-way level that does put its own unique spin on things, but I still needed to mention it, as it does sort of stick out. The next handheld game to also come out for the Game Boy is Super Mario Land 2, The 6 Golden Coins, where there's one zone within it that could be seen as gimmicky, as it vastly changes how you maneuver in the space one. Here you'll see that there's very low gravity in these stages, resulting in a floatier jump that allows you to reach higher up areas, but also makes you move much slower. Really, I just feel like the Game Boy wasn't powerful enough to properly execute this otherwise cool idea. And I am glad that Nintendo didn't give up on this mechanic, as it's really one of the best parts of Super Mario Odyssey. The first game to be created within the 3D realm is Super Mario 64 for the N64, which has one level that's universally loathed by almost every player due to one very gimmicky feature in the Rainbow Ride course. Here, I'm specifically talking about the magic carpets that you need to stand on, as they're really the only way you can progress through the stage, needing to ride it while also avoiding any hazards or enemies that pop up. This just completely destroys the flow of the course and creates a situation that isn't fun for anybody playing it, newbie or pro speedrunner, leading to most saying it's one of the worst Mario levels of all time. The next to come out in the 3D realm is Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube, where in my opinion the most gimmicky levels from it are the secret ones, specifically when you're forced to remove the FLUDD. To me, this just didn't make any sense, as I thought the entire point of the game was the gimmicky device. So removing it completely just adds another layer of gimmick that doesn't make sense, if that makes sense. I'm not sure why they couldn't have just created cool obstacle courses where you needed to use the FLUDD in addition to platforming, but maybe I'm just thinking way too much into this. The only other ones I really could mention are the roller coaster based ones in Pinna Park, where in both instances you need to use water rockets to 1, destroy the Mecha Bowser, and 2, a few Bowser balloons. These two challenges oddly make the game a third-person shooter, as all you can do is control the FLUDD and shoot the rockets at the targets. Although I will give these ones a pass, as they are fun and lead to some amazing moments. Nintendo would eventually return the series to its 2D platforming roots with New Super Mario Bros. For the dual screen system, where there's 3 levels with features that I think are clearly gimmicky, starting with World 6-4, which takes place on the side of a mountain. The thing in question I'm talking about are the thin ledges that you have to shuffle across with your back against the wall, or by grabbing it and climbing sideways, which completely slows down the gameplay and doesn't give you any real challenge. I guess it was a decent attempt at trying something different in these sky-based stages, but unfortunately, it just didn't make for a memorable experience. The second is the very next level in World 6-5, which is based in an underwater environment where there are gigantic whirlpools that try to suck you in. Even though these water tornadoes seem very menacing to traverse through, they're actually quite harmless, where in one instance you actually have to go down one to find a very hidden star medal. The third and final level I want to mention is World 7-3, where you need to ride on the back of a giant wiggler in an auto-scrolling like setting, collecting goodies and defeating enemies along the way. Even though this is gimmicky, it is also kind of fun, and I think what saves it is that auto-scroller setting, which was a smart addition as it makes the stage replayable. In my opinion, the most gimmicky levels from Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii are the Loop-de-Loop and Loop-de-Swoop Galaxies, as in these places you're forced to use the motion control features of the Wiimote. Here, this is all done while riding on the back of a manta ray, essentially using it to surf on the thin waterway by tilting the controller either left or right, which at times does feel a bit clunky. I guess I also could include the Rolling Ball stages in the Rolling Green Galaxy and Rolling Gizmo Galaxies, as those also involve the use of motion controls, but here things feel a lot smoother. Plus, it's not a race-like setting, so you can explore around a bit more and not feel constrained. The second installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii in 2009, where I think it's safe to say that the levels that are shrouded in darkness are gimmicky, as they don't feel fleshed out enough and don't really make that big of a difference. I guess in this case it does shake things up a bit, and at least makes the secrets a bit harder to find, which is a plus? Also, I will admit that World 6-6 is kind of cool, as you get to control the light on the raft, which at least makes things a bit more interactive, and therefore more entertaining. The second in the space-based Wii U sub-series was released in North America in 2010, where there's two gimmicky things from it I want to showcase. Starting with the Fluzzard stages that carry on the need of having to include motion controls. Even though, as you might tell, I'm not the biggest fan of forcing players to have to use this sort of mechanic. However, I do think that these levels are pretty fascinating, as it's almost like you're enjoying a completely different experience, more akin to some sort of aerial-based arcade title. I'd love to know out of the three, which are the rolling ball, surfing, and Fluzzard ones, which are your favorite, so please let me know in the comments. The second stage that I have to mention, that most of you will agree is gimmicky, is the Throwback Galaxy, as it's literally just a worse version of Whomp's Fortress from Super Mario 64. You even face off against that Whomp King at the very top. And although there is some nostalgia bait going on here, it's just sort of unnecessary, and I feel like there was no need for this remake, especially in a game that's supposed to be about space. I really couldn't find the main level from Super Mario 3D Land that was gimmicky, but I will say that the mystery box ones definitely are, where within them, you usually need to defeat enemies within a certain time frame to collect coins and star medals. This gets repetitive extraordinarily quickly, as this type of gameplay doesn't really add anything of value to your experience, other than an alternative way to gain star medals. I feel like there are vastly different things they could have done to make these more interesting to play through. And of course, them being slightly harder would have been one of those steps. But at least the 3D graphics look good, which is a gimmick in itself, but whatever. Next is the third installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series that came out for the 3DS in 2012. Where by a long shot, the levels that are the most gimmicky are the rainbow courses, which are only unlocked if the timer ends with the same 2 digits in any of the levels of the corresponding worlds. What sucks is that these are really just places for you to collect oodles of coins and really act more as bonus rooms than a full-fledged experience, which is what you'd expect for something that was supposed to be hidden. This game honestly just went overboard with the coin collecting, and these stages are a definite reflection of that. But maybe I'm just being too harsh on this game that I think is bad. Maybe you guys enjoy it. I don't know. But you know what? Subscribe. The final installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii U in 2012, where there's actually a bunch of levels that I'd say are gimmicky, starting with Frosted Glacier 1, otherwise known as Spinning Star Sky. I actually do enjoy this stage, as I always found it fun to platform on these spinning objects, especially when playing with other people, as things become absolutely chaotic to the point where it's kind of fun. Not much else to say, as this is an instance where gimmicky can also be good, as long as it doesn't change anything too drastic about the gameplay. One level that's definitely gimmicky, but still a blast to look at visually, is Soda Jungle 4, also named the Painted Swampland, which is obviously inspired by Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. Other than the trippy as heck background, and a few oddly placed boos, this level is pretty tame, and isn't memorable for its design, although you definitely won't forget the cool watercolor setting. The last level I want to mention is one that's completely shrouded in darkness called Light Blocks Dark Tower, where you need to illuminate the objects by using the switches so you can see where you're traveling. Again, these types of levels are very gimmicky as they don't add immense substance to your experience, especially as there's a ton of stars for you to collect, which completely rids you of any danger whatsoever. Up next is Super Mario 3D World, which initially was released for the Wii U, then was later re-released for the Switch, having two specific types of stages I want to look at that are in the realm of being gimmicky, starting with the Plessy ones. Within these, you need to use your Dino Buddy as a sort of vehicle and traverse through an obstacle-like course, defeating enemies and collecting goodies as you go. These levels are a great break from the regular action, and are very replayable as you're bound to miss tons of things during your initial go-through. The others I want to show off as gimmicky are the Captain Toad base ones, which are a complete change-up from the usual gameplay, as this character acts differently than the rest, where he cannot jump, roll, and relies on his plucking ability to solve some puzzles. Even though these stages are rather simplistic here, they spawned the idea to create a game solely based on Captain Toad's adventures, which I think is a blast to play and an amazing switch up from what we're used to. Next to come out in the series is the absolutely massive Super Mario Odyssey Switch entry, where there's only one stage I can think of that's inherently gimmicky in the Rune Kingdom. I think this sticks out to me as I remember coming across this kingdom and expecting way much more from it, where all you really get is a boss battle against a dragon, which, don't get me wrong, is cool, but I feel like was just implemented to get people talking. Nintendo clearly is leaning into the JRPG elements with this one, as this place is definitely based off of games like Final Fantasy and Xenoblade Chronicles. But unfortunately, it's just way too small to be considered good, even if I do appreciate the attempt. One title that's more of a game mode than a full entry in the series is Bowser's Fury, that was bundled alongside the re-release of Super Mario 3D World for the Switch, where there's only really one gimmicky place I can think of in Lake Lapcat, which is Slipskate Slope. In this area, you need to use the Ice Skate item and traverse down the icy obstacles towards the end, needing to use dash panels while avoiding any spiked walls if you can. This is not hard to complete at all, but I do at times have to give props to Nintendo as they really do think outside the box like this. And if I said it before, I'll say it again. Even though it's simple, it's fun. The final and most recent game to come out in the franchise is Super Mario Bros. Wonder for the Nintendo Switch, where the title of the most gimmicky levels from it have to go to the singing Wonder Flower effect ones. Here you'll see enemies like piranha plants, boos, and spikes start to harmonize and almost put on a show for Mario and friends, where in most instances you just need to progress to the end while enjoying the entertainment. To be honest, this game is sort of just one large gimmick, and there are actually dozens of levels I could have chose from that would have fit well into this video. So I'd love to know which ones you would have chosen in the comments below. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, and of course subscribe to my channel. Also, please go follow my Instagram at CopycatGamer. There I upload some cool clips, and I spread collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!